In this video, we will be going over the process of exporting out our unwrapped model and importing it into our texturing software. In this case, we'll be using Substance Painter, but another option that you may want to use would be Photoshop. So what we're going to do here is we have our two pieces here. They're unwrapped. They have their assigned textures. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these two pieces. I'm going to go to File, Export, Selection, and that'll bring me up to a export selection. So I'm just going to make this Canon. I want to do an FBX export. Now you could go through all these settings, but I find that the default settings are just fine for what we're doing. And so I'm going to hit Export Selection, and now it should be ready to go into the next step of the process. So I'm going to open up Substance Painter and go to New, and I'm going to Template. I'm going to do the PBR Metallic Rough. It's fine for me. So I want to select the file. In this case, I'm going to select my Canon. And the document resolution, I'm going to leave at 1024 is pretty good. And I'm going to hit OK. And so now what should happen is you'll see on the texture set list, I have two textures at my metal and my wood. Those are the two textures I set up in Maya. This being the blue being the metal, the yellow being the wood. And I'm just going to scroll around this, make sure everything looks right, and it does. And so now this is ready to texture. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over how to kind of streamline this. You might want to you can probably get about 80% of the way through texturing just with some procedural methods, and that last 20% that really makes it unique, you're gonna be able to do that that last 20% by hand. Another thing too, in some cases you might need something very particular, so it might take a larger effort at the tail end. So maybe it won't be quite an 80% procedural, 20% hand texture, but rather a 50-50 split. So in this case, I could go in here, I go to Smart Material and just drag and drop any old Smart Material on top of here, and it'll look okay. But what I prefer to do is, maybe I'll try a few different textures. This one looks not terrible. It doesn't quite look damaged enough. So maybe I'll just keep on working on a few. But what I also like to do, let's try this one. This looks a little bit better. Yeah, so what I like to do is I find something that I think looks nice, and I'm thinking of it as being like the very brand new, never been affected kind of material. So maybe something like steel, or we'll just go to steel rough. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I think this is more kind of that pitted metal that you would find on like heavy duty, in this case steel cannons. And so what I want to do is I want to take this and I'm going to go into my settings. I'm going to start to adjust some things. So maybe I can adjust the steel color. Maybe I want it to be a little bit darker. I can mess the roughness. So I don't want it to be too shiny, but I also don't want it to be completely matte. So I think probably that 60% is pretty good. That's set at, let's see, I'm going to open up some of these other technical parameters. The normal intensity is going to determine how bumpy it is. I don't need to be that crazy. I want some like bumpy pitted material, but I don't need anything too wild. Being subtle is always good. Something like that looks pretty good. Okay, so now that I have that done, what I might do is I might come in here, that'd be my base layer. I'm just going to call this steel base. And then let's add a fill layer here. In this case, maybe I'll add a, oh, I don't know, maybe some of the paint is kind of peeling off, so I'm going to go ahead and add, let's see. Maybe I'll add a little, like this actually, maybe a darker coat on it. Something like that. I want to bump the height up a little bit, so we're just going to apply that it's a little bit thicker paint on there. And then I'm just going to call this paint. I'm going to add a black mask by right clicking on it, go to add black mask. And I'm actually going to this mask, I'm going to add a fill. In this case, I want to find black and white spots. And I'm going to raise it pretty high. I want the contrast to be pretty high as well. Let's try to bring it bounce down a little bit. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to find parts that are of the can, like where the paint's actually starting to wear off. If I hit this seed random, I can actually kind of reshuffle how it looks until I find something that looks pretty good. So as you see here, this paint is the paint itself is a little bit thicker, so I can always change the color of paint if I want it to be like maybe pitch black, if I want it to be just a hair more blue perhaps. Alright, so that looks pretty good, I think. So as you can see, where the paint has been chipped off underneath is that raw steel that we had earlier. Alright, so I think that looks fine there, how it is. And the next thing I want to do is I want to add in some rust. So I'm just going to go to another fill layer. I'm going to call this one rust. And I'm going to, in this case, let's see, maybe the rust is a little bit more dull. I'm going to actually add in here a, let's see, generator, if I have a gradient. I do not. Okay, let me remove this generator. There you go. So I'm going to add a filter, which should be a gradient. So what this is going to allow me to do, it's going to allow me to have multiple colors here. So I'm going to find a orange, kind of muddy orange gradient, and then I want to go to a more of a vibrant orange-red gradient. Let's see if I can. Let's see. And so you see there's kind of that gradient going on. I can adjust that a little bit. You can adjust the contrast. Okay. Maybe I want more of a red in this case. So that's okay there. Now I'm just going to add in a black mask. I'm just going to add in a generator. Let's see what kind of generators we have. So we have one called Dirt, which probably will give me a pretty decent rust look. So I'm just going to lower the dirt level a little bit. I can also up the grunge amount. And so what it's going to do is basically it's painting on that rust look on top of everything else we have here. Okay. And you know, I highly recommend you guys spend a little bit more time you know, really kind of tweaking this. Personally, I have not spent much time tweaking this. So you know, if you feel free to do that. I might want to make this a little bit more vibrant. So maybe a little more red, a little brighter yellows. There you go. So now we have that rust kind of on there, like so. And for now, we'll say that the cannon is, for most part done. Now we can, of course, come in here and paint in some details on the cannon. So let's say if we wanted to, I'm going to just remove this rust and this paint here. If we want to come here and add some details, like I could say, maybe I wanted to go in here and add a stripe, for example. I might add on a stripe here. In fact, let me go ahead and make this black mask, and then I'm just going to use my paintbrush. Anywhere I paint now, what will show up. So I'm just going to make this a hard edge of my paintbrush. My brush size I'm gonna bring down to, that's fine. Well, let's make it a little smaller. Let's make this 4. Oops. Three is fine. So I'm going to select stroke and then click on once, hold shift and click across. And so now you see here we have that line there. I might do it one more time over here. And these are some small details I can paint right in there. And maybe another thing I might want to do is maybe I want to add a little logo right about here. So I see that's right there. So I'm going to do here. Let's see, nope, it's right here. Okay. I'm going to go to my alphas. I'm going to find a stencil. And maybe this stencil I'm going to do is something like this. So I'm going to hold S. Oops. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And I'm just going to be able to paint right across wherever I want it. So this basically is kind of my my logo, if we want to call it the logo of the cannon. That looks pretty good there. And now I can just go ahead and close out the stencil. And now that I have this, I'll just call this details. Now this done, I can actually, because this is done with a mask, I can change the color if I want to change the color to red. In this case, I think I'm going to actually turn off the color and crank up the height. So therefore, it actually bumps out a little bit. And then I'm going to turn off the roughness as well. So just this one's just going to be the height. The only thing I need here. Let's see. Maybe I'll put this height to set at 0.5. Okay, so now, as you see, we have those lines painted in there. We have the crossbones painted in. Now I can turn on this other stuff. I'm going to turn off my wireframe. But so at certain angles, you'll be able to see those crossbones in there. Everything's going to just go right on top of it. So these are the kind of small, subtle details I was talking about, going that extra 20%. So, and then also you can always go in here. Let's say if you want that rust, if you want to paint in a little bit more a little bit more rust somewhere. So I'll add a paint layer, and I come in here. I can just paint wherever I want that rust to be. So maybe I'll use I'll go my brushes, find a good brush. Let's say maybe something like, well, for this case, I'll just go bark. And I'm going to drop this down. I might just kind of just brush in the corners here a little bit. Maybe right around here, I'll brush in some more rust. So I can really go where I want with this. Also, you can make it black, so therefore you paint it. No, you kind of get rid of things. So, so there we're done with the cannon. And what we're going to do next, I'm going to pause the video, and then in the next video we will go over the texturing the wood portion of this.